All right, welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 17th of July, 2024, and this is the Cluster API Office Hours meeting. Cluster API is a sub-project of Kubernetes SIGs, and as such, we follow their meeting guidelines, which basically are, please treat everyone as you would expect to be treated, or explicitly so, please be kind to each other. And if you would like to talk, please raise your hand and I will call on you. So at the beginning of our meetings, we like to give a chance for new attendees or new community members to introduce themselves. So if that sounds like you, please raise your hand. I'll call on you and you can introduce yourself. Igor, please.
Hey, yeah, I'm Igor. I'm working with Richard Case. We have a discussion proposal. Yeah, I've worked on just a few various Kubernetes related projects, including Kubernetes, and been using Cappy, and it's really cool. And yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. Welcome aboard, Igor. Great to have you. All right. I am not seeing any other hands going up, so we will move along in 3, 2, 1. Okay. I don't think we have any open proposal. Oh, we have one open proposal. Improve the status for cluster API conditions. I guess is that going to be that might be a topic during the meeting today.
Yeah, exactly. This is what
Okay.
I want to talk about.
Okay. All right. We'll put a pin in that until the discussion topics then. All right. So first discussion topic, Richard, Igor, you're up with support for mixed infrastructure providers. So please take it away.
Yeah, we have a use case, and I think other folks might be interested in this, of having mixed infrastructure providers, like specifically maybe having a different provider for the control plane and the worker nodes. So maybe an example would be like VM control plane and metal worker nodes. But also mixing, your worker node fleet could also be useful. Um, So I heard that I was talking to Richard. I heard this is something that had some discussion before. We're trying to see if there's still any interest and what that would look like. And if there is, we'd be interested in working on a proposal for that.
Does anyone have comments about this? Richard, please.
Sorry, the mute button's moved. Yeah, just to add to that, there's been quite a lot of history in this sort of area. We discussed it at the Contributor Summit in KubeCon EU in 2023. There was also a separate community meeting as well, where we discussed it, and a proposal was started in 2022 by me and Leonard from Ericsson. So we're trying to sort of resurrect those discussions and B, the proposal, and actually progress it, as Eagle says. So yeah, very keen to hear from people that are interested. Leonard is on vacation, so he won't be able to chime in at this stage, but hopefully he will when he gets back.
I will speak for myself and I guess partially for Red Hat as well. I think this is an interesting idea and something that I've heard from users kind of asking about how to do these mixed mode type things. And I think it opens a can of worms into other things like what do you do in situations where there might need to be multiple CCMs and those type of things. But I think it would be awesome to kind of continue the discussion and see what a proposal would look like. So it's a +1 for me for what it's worth.
Sorry, I jump in without raising because it does not work while sharing. But yeah, someone recently pointed out that in our Cluster API book, there is a explicit non-goal for Cappy. to avoid, but I consider this something that we can change. It is there since SAGE and it's practically unmaintained. And we already discussed the use case. Yeah, going back, I think there are several problems to be addressed. Mike brought up CCI and CPI and CSI on the same cluster, which I don't know if it is supported. The other is how currently providers are written, because they assume that when you have an AWS machine, you assume to have an AWS cluster as well. And so, yeah, there are several points to be addressed, but I think that it is an interesting. Honestly, I'm not sure that in CAPI we are making any assumption with regard to this, but there are assumptions on how providers are written or how Kubernetes works. So yeah, it will be an interesting area to explore. I'm also +1 to have a working group prototype probably.
Stefan, please.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I'm pretty sure that we don't make any assumptions that cluster and machines have to be from the same provider, because I mean, you can basically mix and match stuff like AWS managed and non-managed stuff with different, and there's no problem there. So I think that should be pretty safe, or if we find something pretty easy to fix. Lubomir brought up an interesting point, which is you also need cloud providers which are able to handle that basically your nodes in different clouds. I'm not sure how far that goes. I mean, there's definitely the provider ID part, but so we're not sure yet, but we might bring up something soon that makes maybe the provider ID thing a lot more optional than today. Just some spoiler there. But also, I don't know how it works with load balancers, right? I mean, if you create a service type load balancer and then you're supposed to get like, I don't know, some AWS load balancer thingy, how does it make sure that it only adds the load balance member that are actually working? Maybe that's fine because you cannot, I don't know how it is implemented across clouds. I think in the OpenStack cloud provider, you can just label your nodes and then only those are getting added as backends. And maybe that's just similar across providers. And then you're fine. But I mean, maybe also not all of this has to work, and we just have to be clear about the limitations or the requirements under which certain things are working.
Yeah, I think, just sorry, I'll just like cut in line here a second, just putting on my SIG cloud provider hat for a second. I think like it might be possible that like CCMs or like CPI, as you might call it, like it might be possible that they could play nicely together in the same cluster with like nodes from two different infrastructure providers. But I think even in the SIG cloud provider realm, we've been, kind of approaching like there's work that needs to be done to make sure that they behave properly and that they're doing the right things. So I think there's still work that needs to be done there. And with that, Nolan, please, you're next.
I just wanted to clarify that is the proposal to support mixed infrastructure providers in the management cluster, or is it in the management cluster and worker clusters, both?
Yeah, so that's something that we can, it's like still kind of TBD. And I have like a little draft proposal that Richard and I have been working on, and in there I said that the goals were mixing control plane and workers, or mixing multiple workers, but not having mixed providers within the control plane. That was a non-goal. However, that's open to, it's still very early. That's open to discussion. And
So these are worker clusters?
so I like an example would be you have one provider for the control plane and a different provider for the workers,
Okay.
where you have a provider for the control plane and two providers for the workers.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
All right, Daniel, you're up next.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I guess one thing to keep in mind is we have a requirement from some controllers, like the control plane controller, for example, to be able to reach the API of workload cluster, and so far, we've been able to sort of I guess assume for a particular for a particular cluster, we have, let's say, egress from all the nodes, where the controller might run. So this might change. So I just think it something that we have to at least consider. It might become slightly more complicated. It might not.
Lubomir, you're up next. I guess you put your hand down, Lubomir. Does anyone else have?
Oops. Oh, no, sorry.
Okay.
I forgot to unmute. Okay. Based on the previous feedback, especially from Mike, who is from SIG cloud provider, I would definitely suggest that you do some sort of prototype before engaging, writing a really long document about this. Because this will clarify to you what are the blockers. I don't know if you have a prototype already, but if this is if we're talking about blockages on the cloud provider components, then you obviously have to engage in a much larger change outside of this group. So do you have a prototype, and do you plan to do such a test?
Yeah, we're definitely gonna need to research that. We haven't started approaching any cloud provider folks yet. I guess Mike is one, but
Yeah. My point is that if you face some challenges, obviously there are blockers maybe, you can document them in the proposal document as required changes related to outside of CAPI, because without this, there's like a lot of uncertainties. How do you put the whole feature together? So this is my recommendation.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Richard, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say a couple of points on the proof of concept. So me and Leonard have previously or historically created proof of concepts where we've got this working, but they didn't explicitly cover CPI and CCM. So could potentially resurrect those as a means to expedite that. And also on, I guess, Daniel's point around the connectivity. So it's a similar problem with like control plane as pods type scenarios where you need that some way to connect. So it could be just overload the word connectivity as it is in the solution connectivity. But yeah, I guess it's a similar issue there.
Yeah, I feel like the in-cluster DNS is going to get like really interesting once you start, dividing across different VPCs or whatever. Someone's going to have a fun time debugging that networking for sure. All right. Any other questions or comments about this topic? We got a good discussion going here. It seems like definitely interest in this proposal, but there are some little bit of research that needs to be done, and probably we need to identify where the sticking points would be. Especially around like cloud providers and whatnot. And probably storage is going to be a thing as well. All right. I am not seeing, oh, Stefan, please.
Just one question. I was wondering, once we know a bit more of those details, does it basically come down to some sort of contract for infra providers on how they have to be implemented to be capable to participate in a like multi-infrastructure cluster? Like, oh, you don't have to make assumptions between infra machine and infra cluster and this kind of thing?
I mean, ideally, in a perfect world, you know, the infra providers would work as is, but it might come down to, okay, this is now something CAPU supports, and if you want your infra provider to support it, you know, you need to add this functionality.
Alrighty, let's see.
All right. Cool. I guess if there are no other questions, going in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Daniel, you've got the next topic about the Cluster API add-on provider.
Thanks. Yeah, it's just looking for some feedback from the community. Basically, what I said there is, you know, if you are deploying add-ons, do you need to create namespaces? That is not something that can be, let's say, defined as part of the Helm chart. And so, yeah, how are you dealing with that? Yeah, it would be great if you can leave your feedback on that issue. There are a few alternatives. It's not directly supported by CAP-H, but perhaps that's something that that would make sense. So, yeah, just love to hear users' feedback. Thanks.
Cool. Does anybody have questions or comments about this issue for the add-on provider? Give a second here to load it up.
Sorry, I think I misspoke. It's not that creating the namespace is not supported. It's creating the namespace with some labels, annotations, some additional metadata. That's not supported.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm not seeing any hands going up. So I guess encourage folks to take a look at this if you are interested in add-ons and leave your comments there. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, Fabrizio, you've got the next topic with a new proposal about cluster API conditions.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, maybe you already heard me ranting about we need to move V1 beta 2, etc., etc. And so yeah, what I was looking at all the issue that we have in the backlog, etc., etc., it is pretty clear that we are not in an ideal state when it comes to status in cluster API resources, not only conditions, but also, I don't know, replica counters or other fields. I make you an example. If you do kubectl get machine, you get a condition that tells you this machine is ready. And the semantic of this machine is just, oh, the machine is has infrastructure ready, bootstrap ready, and a lot of other condition included. But if you do kubectl get machine deployment, and you have the number of ready replicas, and this ready on machine deployment, it just count node ready. So that basically we have two different meaning for machine or replica ready. And yeah, other stuff in machine deployment, you can see, oh, this machine is updated or unavailable. But if you do a kubectl get machine to figure it out which machine exactly is updated, there are no field surfacing the same information. So there are several inconsistencies or like this one. And so the idea is that we need to fix the foundation before adding on top. And what came to my mind is that where I was thinking to plans for V1 beta 2 APIs, it is clear that we have a unique opportunity. So if we plan in this upgrade, we plan to move from cluster API custom condition to Kubernetes aligned condition, which is now possible because now there is upstream Kubernetes condition type, there are upstream util for condition, etc., etc. So much changed since when we design copy conditions. So if we do this change, we have a unique opportunity basically to improve Kubernetes condition semantics, et cetera. So the first call that I'm making to the community is, okay, I have this proposal out. I'm looking for a feedback, high-level feedback about the direction, because it is a it is an important work, and it is important to get everyone's opinion about this. So the proposal is in a PR. And what I'm showing now is basically the high-level direction of the proposal. So as said, we have to start from the foundation. Basically, what we are doing is that we are defining. So since we are dropping API convention, we adopt the Kubernetes API 1. We can do stuff like, okay, let's redefine the semantic of ready. And we want a semantic that makes sense for users. So the semantic is basically the machine can host workload, which is very similar to not ready, that means the node can host pods. So we are kind of making thing consistent between us and Kubernetes, which helps users. And the semantic is, oh, my machine needs infrastructure ready, needs node healthy, and it needs also, to not be failing according to the definition that of healthiness that comes from machine health check. But another interesting thing that we can add also stuff like readiness gates. So a new extension point that allows third-party controller to extend the definition of ready for a machine. And the first example is, maybe that in a control plane machine, I want also to add, I don't know, API server pod must be ready for this machine to be considered ready. So it is a nice extensible point. Or if you are a controller running a specific cloud provider running something specific on your machine, you can add a condition here. And similarly machine level, we are going to add stuff like this machine is available or up to date. And the idea is that as soon as you get those information down to the machine, we can finally bubble them up in a consistent way. And so a machine set, you can have machines ready. And this machine ready has the exact same semantic of ready below. And the same apply for replica counters. We can finally align replica counter to count machines that have a ready condition instead of something else that we are doing today. But also there is a nice effect that since the machine ready condition now is well scoped, we can start adding new condition about lifecycle operation, scaling up, scaling down, up to date, updating, remediating. The machine is this object is posed. We can think about them. And why we can do this? Because we don't have anymore the condition that the requisite that those conditions have to be true, that was existing in cluster API guidance, etc. And they should not sum up anymore in the status of this condition. So we can make something much more user-friendly. Another thing to notice is that at machine set, we don't have a ready condition, because machine set, we consider machine set like a dumb abstraction. It is really just a simple collection of machine, and it doesn't make sense to have too many ready conditions around when we want just the user to focus on machine readiness, which is the most important things in cluster API. And then, going up, you can go up from machine set to machine deployment, and you can keep. We can finally enforce to have a well-consistent set of condition in all the object, well-consistent set of replica counters on all the object, and well-consistent set of condition about lifecycle changes. And a nice thing that is happening that is important is that when you group a machine, so the more you move up from machine, the concept of readiness is becoming too strict. And in Kubernetes, there is this concept of availability. You can find it on deployments. That basically means that your object is up to the task, but at the end, it also allows some degree of not readiness. And for machine deployment, it will be, I have enough replica, except, and I tolerate a certain number of max unavailable. And this is a concept that exists in Kubernetes. We partially exist also in Cluster API. We want to make it first class in Cluster API as well, because the next step is when you go up from machine deployment, you finally arrive to the cluster. And in the cluster, we want to surface workers available, because this is what matters for the user. And we can surface also replica counters to the cluster level, which is something that today we don't have. And we can even get to a point where we can give a high-level indication, oh, this cluster is scaling up, is adding a machine, or scaling down, or is all the machine in this cluster up to date, and et cetera, et cetera. And the final step of the story is that we can also introduce the concept of overall cluster availability. So we can finally answer to the user question, is my cluster good or bad? Okay, and this again, cluster availability, it accepts some degree of non-readiness. You don't need all the worker machine to be up. You need to keep it to account max availability. You don't need all the control plane nodes to be up. It is enough that one or two are up and you get quorum. And so your cluster will be available, and basically this is how we are computing, or I'm proposing to compute it, is that we will have a control plane available, of course. We will have worker available, of course. We're thinking also to add a condition which is a remote connection probe. So we are continuously probing the connection with the workload cluster, because today is not visible when the connection is down. And this is a interesting information, because based on this information, we can go back and for instance, mark a known you're not ready condition when after, I don't know, 2 minutes, you don't get answer for the cluster, which is something that today is not transparent. You can only figure it out in logs, basically. And the last bit of the story is that we can also make the condition, so the semantic of cluster availability extensible, because maybe I'm a third-party controller, and I also want to make sure that I have CPI and CNI installed, so an add-on working in order to consider my cluster available. And yeah, this the only last thing that I want to talk about, and then I shut up, is that it is a journey to get to V1 Beta 2. And considering API deprecation, stuff like that, it will take more than 1 year. At least 1 year, only deprecation period. And so the point is that we can get benefits sooner than that from this work, if you want. And the user can rely on all the API for 1 year, so they have plenty time of adjust. This will be, you know, it's like a story, and this it goes back again. I really need the feedback about the direction of this story. And just to give about some detail, if we think about, I don't know, that we are going to implement the first changes in for the end of the year release, and in the end of the year there will be still only V1 Beta 1. What we can do is that keep current status field, current condition, and current replica fields, and just add a new experimental status field, name is TBD. And so user can eventually start relying on giving feedback on the new API. Then what happened? Let's assume that in April 2025, we finally release V1 Beta 2. What we can do is we can basically rename experimental field to become the actual status field. But then, given a API deprecation rule, we have to keep all the status field around for implementing down conversion. We will keep them around. We will eventually rename them to make clear that they are going to go away. And so we basically, that means that and this will basically remain the state for 1 year according to, for 9 months or 3 release, the longer. And in cluster API, that means 1 year because we do a release every 4 months. And finally, in the moment that V1 beta 1 will be removed, we will drop the backward compatibility field and reach the end state. So it is a long story, but I think there is a lot of value in this. And yeah, I'm really looking for feedback. Please go and comment on the proposal.
Thanks, Fabrizio. I think this is really exciting, and I appreciate the amount of time and effort you put into the slide deck and whatnot. It made it a lot clearer. So thank you. Does anybody have questions or comments about this? Lubomir, please.
Yeah, I'm not in concrete at this point. Thank you for presenting, Fabrizio. I was just wondering, because you mentioned the upstream condition type, is this like the meta v1 condition that I think is fairly new? Okay.
Yes, it's fairly new. It's used only in a few new Kubernetes resources, but the API, basically it is what the API guidelines are now clearly defining as a things to use.
It's fairly similar to the cluster API current condition, with one difference, I think, is the observed generation is obviously upstream. And also I see there's a severity in the cluster API, which is like a superset. So I think my question here is it possible to, in V1 beta 2, to embed the meta V1 inside the cluster API condition type, or you prefer to use it directly and not embed it inside like a container?
I think we should bridge we should cross the bridge and get to the end state, because everything we do will basically imply 1 year migration. And so my major concern is that every difference that we have with Kubernetes is something that creates confusion in users, and we get plenty of feedback of evidence on how users are confused. And so I'm leaning towards using core types as they are.
I see. Yes. This will require changes on some consumers of cluster API as a library. Obviously, there will be a transition period. This also means you want to drop the severity field.
I'm prototyping which option we have. Honestly, I'm also thinking if we really need it, really need this fancy mechanism, or we can simplify the stuff. But yeah, again, this is part of the kind of feedback that I'm looking for.
Yeah, severity is like a UX niceness in a way, but it's not really, it's possible to go without it. That's my point. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I will check the document again.
Great questions. Thank you, Lubomir. Does anybody else have questions or comments about this? Stefan, please.
Yeah, definitely. First, thanks for driving this. I know firsthand that there's a lot of work in this. Just wondering, because I'm not sure if you mentioned it. So does the current PR also include some potential anticipated changes that provider will have to make? Because then just definitely take a look at the doc, or I don't know, maybe a bit of foreshadowing, whatever you think is good at this point.
So the current proposal sorry, let me open it quickly. So current proposal, oh, sorry, I linked the wrong document. Yeah, sorry.
Your presentation has the PR link in it on the first slide.
Yeah, let's use this one, and I will fix the link later. So in the current proposal, what I have is the change to a set of core cluster API resources. So machine set, machine deployment, cluster, and also Kubernetes mean control plane, because it is an example of control plane implementation. I still have to fill up machine pool, and I still have to fill up the part with that regards to cluster API, change to a cluster API contract. I think that there also for the cluster API contract, we will have a sort of migration story like the one defined here for APIs. So there should be a way to start using them in advance, a way to keep working all the new mode while things have time to adapt, and then there will be a cutoff date where only new things will work. But I still have to figure it out detail. My main concern is that this, I honestly, this is really a huge work. Just to get this, yeah, it is getting longer. Keep adding detail. So I really want to have a feedback about the direction before investing too much time and so this is what really I'm looking from the community. I hope this answers, Stefan. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Cool. So yes, I think if you are curious about this or it sounds exciting to you, please look at the PR that's linked in from the slide deck. Please add comments if there's things you'd like to see, or if there's architectural directions that don't make sense to you, like please raise them there. Yeah, I mean, I can only say thank you again, Fabrizio. This is a great amount of preparation for this, and I think it really helps the discussion forward. Any other last minute comments or questions on this before we go forward? Stefan, please.
Yeah, just one quick question. So we had like this old Google Doc around conditions on the top of our document for a while.
I will drop it.
The PR basically supersedes the entire doc, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Let's go this way.
Okay.
Fix it live.
Yeah, great discussion, awesome topic. And yeah, I think there's probably people who aren't here today who are interested in this. So like if you're watching on a recording, or maybe tell your friends about this so they can come take a look. Okay, moving on to the next topic. Chandan, you've got an announcement about a patch release.
Yeah, thanks. So we have made a patch release 1.8 beta 0 yesterday, and which contains some feature enhancement and also some bug fixes. You can check out the more detail on the release notes page. And also just a note addition, we are scheduled to begin 1.8 code freeze by Tuesday, 30th of July 24. So if you have any PR wanted to go to 1.8, please get it merged before that. Yeah, that's all I have. And also thanks for the contributor and the release teams. Thanks for making this release. Yeah.
Thank you, Chandan. And yeah, echo that thanks to the release team for helping to make all this happen. Nolan, you've got the next topic about have any providers implemented the namespace credentials?
Sorry, Mike, a quick one about beta releases. So this is again the time where we really need feedback from providers. So I think that the release team is opening issue in the main provider's repo to start adopting new release, verify that everything works well, provide feedback. It is a super important work, and it is crucial for the community. So thank you for the provider that will start doing this.
Yeah, it's all PR is raised. So yeah.
Yeah, great point. And yes, like I was looking at CapK and Chandan, thank you for opening the PR there. I have not, I think we're still lagging behind there, but I appreciate that. And it seems like Nolan has linked through the PR for Kappa, so awesome to see people getting into it already. Okay, any other questions or comments about the patch release announcement? Stefan, please.
Yeah, maybe just a quick FYI because there were already first issues in picking up core copy version. Just if you're having any problems, specifically with generics. So if that's basically the first copy version since, let's say, 1.7, basically from main, that you're picking up with the new control runtime version. Basically, control runtime made a few changes to introduce generics, which mostly shouldn't affect anyone, but there are cases. Feel free to just ask in Slack and ping me because I might not be reading all the messages. I can probably help there. And I mean, if you're collecting like the same issues over again, we'll figure out how to document them somewhere and this sort of stuff. But just if you're running into problems, just let me know.
I think that's your Slack handle, right? As Spuringer. I might not have spelled it right.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, it's correct. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't. I see your name on screen has the umlaut on it, so that's what confused me. All right, cool.
Yeah, I'm not trying to use those everywhere because it simply doesn't work everywhere.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Any other questions or comments on the patch release? Okay. Nolan, your topic about implementing the namespace credentials, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask this really quickly, and folks can follow up with me on Slack. Someone proposed adding credentials in namespaces to Kappa, and the use case would basically be you have teams who get their own namespaces within a management cluster, and they would be trusted to start their own clusters, possibly in different accounts. I'm curious if anyone has any prior art that might kind of inform a design here. It looked sensible to me, but I'm not an expert in the security considerations. So feel free to ping me on Slack. I'm at NRB. Yeah, just I didn't want to take up too much time here, but I did want to ask other providers if they've got any similar constructs.
Stefan, you got your hand up, please.
Yeah, don't really have a lot of experience, but I think basically where we're coming from is roughly this. So before we had like those cluster identities and that sort of stuff, I think basically the standard thing was to just have a reference to a secret on a single cluster object or something like that. So that's basically a single namespace thing, right? So maybe it's just similar to that case, just with a nice COD around it. And don't ask me what the security implications of that are, but it seems to me like that's as good or bad as having that secret essentially from a security perspective.
Yeah, and the core change that I think this person is proposing is very similar. And we have a type that references a secret. They're just basically asking, can we use the same reference type and put it in a namespace versus solely being cluster scoped?
I see.
So the security boundary would be you can either have it namespaced or cluster scope, but you cannot access secrets across namespaces.
Yeah, that's a big one, definitely.
Yeah. So, yeah, the type for the reference to the secret already lacks a namespace field. So I think it would mostly be updating controllers to look in the current namespace that the request is coming from, plus customer level. But yeah, okay. Thanks, folks.
Maybe it's useful. I remember there was an old PR, probably from Nadir, trying to write down some guidance for provider about how to do credential management. I'm pretty sure this PR never made it, but it was there was good discussion on this PR, at least as far as I remember. So maybe worth to go and search for it. I will try to resurrect it, to search for it after the meeting. Now I'm sharing. I cannot.
Okay. And that was that a CAPI level 1 or a Kappa level 1?
It was a CAPI one where
Okay.
they were when Nadir was trying to give guidance about this specific topic. So I think that is kind of related to what you're asking.
Yeah, I just shared a link in the chat down there. I don't remember if it was also. I assume it definitely included like the cluster wide thing, because I think that's basically what we were trying to standardize at the time. But I guess that standard or contract or convention never really made it in the book, so it's technically not there, while it's purely coincidental that a lot of providers implemented it in a similar way. So that's the current state of this thing across providers, as far as I know.
Cool. Thanks for bringing up the engineering history too. That's like these are the unrecorded parts, right? Does anybody else have comments or maybe suggestions for Nolan there? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands going up, so we will move on to Sanat, who's got a CI update. Please.
Yeah, thank you. We have a KCP remediation test is failing. So currently CI team is investigating and working on it. Yep. And we also had some flakes which got solved, some of them by maintainers. And thank you very much for helping out that. Yeah, currently this one is pretty important and we are looking into that. And that one is my comment. Actually, that's not correct. So at the beginning, I assumed that's not becoming ready, but it was intentional for the remediation. So, yeah.
Okay, great.
That's it from my side.
Yeah, I guess, are there any questions or comments for Sanat? Or is there anything that we could do to help out more there, I guess? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands going up. So thank you, Sanat, for bringing that to us. Hopefully we continue the debugging there and solve the issue, I guess. All right, so that is the end of our regular agenda. We'll go to provider updates now. So Christian, you got the first one for CapV.
Yeah, I take it for Christian. He couldn't make it for a meeting.
Okay,
so
cool.
basically related to please upgrade to CAPI beta. We did it today, and CapV is also already released with the first beta release, which uses the CAPI beta release. So if you're using CapV, feel free to try it out. Should be pretty close to the final versions of CapV, and I guess also of CapI. Not much more coming in, I think, in the next 3 weeks or so.
Cool, thank you, and awesome to see these 1.8.0 betas getting out there so quickly. CapZ update. I don't know. Is Matt here? Are you gonna? Or does someone want to speak to the CapZ update, or should I? All right, I'm not seeing Matt here. So I guess CapZ has a 1.6.0 release and has some new patch releases. So go check those out. I don't know much about them, but they're new. And Richard, you've got Kappa updates.
Just a very quick one. Just shout out to Andres. He's going to be moving up from reviewer to maintainer. He's put a lot of effort in consistently, which is great. Especially helpful because we recently lost a maintainer. Someone changed jobs. So that's super helpful. It sort of feeds into this next point as well, that in Kappa we're struggling to get PRs reviewed in a timely manner, and we can see the PR count slowly creeping back up again. So more of a usual sales pitch. If anyone wants to help out with Kappa, would greatly appreciate it. But yeah, kudos to Andres.
Yeah, here. Kudos to Andreas, and thank you for your continued efforts there. It's great to see us promoting people to maintainer status. Yeah, I guess
will be coming soon, because we are just in a company switching customers to Kappa-based clusters, so we have to do a lot of work there. So yeah, I will stay active. We also have a colleague of mine as in the reviewer role. Probably more people in the future, I don't know. So yeah, we'll stay around. Thank you.
cool. That's great to hear. Love to hear about more engagement there. So that's very nice. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end of our agenda for today. Does anybody have any last minute or ad hoc topics they would like to bring up? Going in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming out. And I guess we'll take 5 minutes back and we'll see you next week.